And we are live. Welcome, everybody, to the Bottom of the Ninth podcast. I am your host, Elijah Rodriguez. Yeah, man. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. If you're listening, awesome. If you're watching, even better. If you're watching, I apologize for my hair. I was wearing a hat and then realized I was having to wear these headphones, so didn't prep for that one. But yeah, guys, we over at Baseball Express have been actually planning this for a really long time. It's been a work in the making for quite a bit now. I think we had been talking about it. Today is November 12th, 2022, and we had actually been. It's been in discussion since about April. And we just figured, like, why not now? Baseball's at its probably most exciting point. We as a company are really trying to grow, so we thought this would really fit into our content structure, and we're super happy. Me personally here hosting it for you guys, I'm super pumped to do this. So yeah. So what the Bottom of the Ninth podcast really is. So for those of you who don't know or don't follow us on social, this podcast is brought to you and sponsored by Baseball Express. We are a multi-channel baseball store. We also own softball.com, which is basically the same thing, just for the softball front, slow pitch, fast pitch. And then we're kind of over, like the umbrella over us is Team Express, which is pretty much a team dealer. We deal with all sorts of universities and school districts and teams and things of that nature. So that's kind of who we are in a nutshell. So super awesome. I've been here for about 5 years. Super awesome. So why we made it? It's kind of an array of different things, really. The kind of story that went back to it was obviously when the world changed. COVID hit in 2020, and the world was really never the same. Well, it was kind of almost a meme at the time. Oh, everybody's starting podcasts, and I had actually done a podcast with my buddy, so I was pretty knowledgeable in this side of things, I guess you could say, or knowledgeable enough to get something like this done. And when talking to a couple of my coworkers, they're like, we're really trying to ramp up content. What should we do? And a lot of guys out there these days, baseball bat bros, Eric Sim, King of JUCO, they're all doing kinds of crazy baseball content, and it was like, that's super interesting, and they have a really tailored audience and some really diehard fans. And I was like, this is really interesting. And I started doing a deep dive on kind of like baseball content and a lot of things happening out there. And besides a couple big players, there was a lot of open space. And I thought, us as a company with all the connections we have, all the different routes we can take it with, what we do as a company, it just seemed to fit right in on so many fronts. And we kind of talked about it. We really solidified it, and we thought, this would be really cool to talk about, not only just products and stuff in the game, but like baseball as a culture, because it's such a big thing. And like I said earlier, it's growing and it's getting bigger. And it's honestly, if you were to ask me, it's at the most exciting point I think baseball's been at a really long time. But yeah, so we really said, you know what, let's just do it. And the idea was, me, having a pretty big footprint here in the San Antonio area, um, with the baseball community. I thought, we could get quite a bit of interesting guests and really put some people out there that have a lot of valuable information in the game of baseball regarding, playing it at the highest level or higher levels, coaching it at the highest level or higher levels, and players that are currently playing, and how that's evolved from what maybe I played with, or, some of our guys we have here that played back in the early 2000s, late 2000, 2009, 10, 11, and they were playing at the highest level, Division One baseball, some pro. So I thought, we have a lot of opportunity here. And I thought that would really fit, which is kind of why we decided to go this route. Now, excuse me, who I am and why you guys think, probably wondering what the hell is this guy doing, think he can talk about baseball. Well, so like I said, my name is Elijah Rodriguez. I am currently the digital marketing manager for baseballexpresssoftball.com, and now our newest, and which I probably should have started with earlier, we now have partnered with Softball Fans, and we've made Glovehead, which a lot more to come on that, but now that's part of our subsidiary group. But yeah, so pretty much I'm just a digital marketing manager. I've been around the game since as long as I can remember. Been playing, oh man, since probably I could walk. I was playing ball. So, I grew up here in San Antonio, Texas. Which is why if you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, we do all of our bat testing videos at the retail store here in San Antonio, Texas. So that's really cool. And the store itself has been around for a really long time, and I've been shopping there for as long as I can remember. It's always been the coolest place to be. If you're in the San Antonio area and you haven't been, please check it out. It's phenomenal. We have a great selection of all kinds of stuff, so it's just super sweet. Batting cages, hit tracks, Rapsodo. We got everything up in there. Check it out if you're in the area, or if you're in the surrounding areas. Go give it a look at. It's pretty cool. Um, anyway, back to my experience. So, growing up shopping there, working here has been almost a dream come true. It's been so fun to just be around baseball and sports, into my career, way past when the game ended for me. But yeah, so grew up in San Antonio, Texas, born and raised. Played baseball at Central Catholic High School. I don't really know. I think I was a 3-year letterman. I definitely was on JV my freshman year and then got pulled up. But yeah, played at least 3 years on varsity. That's for sure. Ended up signing a letter to play at the University of Incarnate Word here in San Antonio, Texas, which was going to be their first Division 1 or year as a Division 1 school. Just crazy. Didn't pan out. Took a red shirt. Ended up actually not playing my freshman year. I took that year to just train, and I trained and trained probably the whole spring. Going into my next fall semester, I decided to go the JUCO route. So I am a JUCO bandit, believe it or not. Ended up playing 2 years at Angelina College in Lufkin, Texas. Yes, crazy Lufkin, Texas. No, I'm just kidding. Love Lufkin. So played 2 years there, and then ended up finishing my career at St. Mary's University back in San Antonio, Texas. Um, though at that school I did tear my UCL, so that ended my career. And I have people telling me all the time, "Oh my gosh, get the surgery, blah blah blah." And I'm like, it's been torn. And I went to go get it checked out, it was actually torn for a while prior to that, and I was kind of just playing through it. People ask me all the time, like, what it felt like, and I'm like, I can't even pinpoint to you the time it actually happened. It's super strange. It's just like one of those things where you pretty much just remember playing and your arm just hurts a little bit, but it's tolerable. So I think it may have been a gradual thing. But yeah, so, you know, that's kind of my niche. I actually do a little bit of coaching. I did a little bit of lessons for a while after that, but kind of really just was salty with the game for a bit, I think, with the way that it ended, and went into Baseball Express. And that's kind of where I've been since. That was probably, I think I started really working here in 2017. And kind of worked my way through a lot of different aspects of the company, and now we're here. So it's been a glow up. I mean, there's no other way to explain it. And I'm super happy to be here and love everybody that we work with over here. We're really a great community. Um, but yeah, guys, I mean, this is pretty much going to be, and kind of giving a little more background of what this is going to really be. It's going to be a multitude of things. We work with a lot of the greatest brands in the game. Kind of transitioning away from myself a little bit. And we're really planning to work with a lot of vendors and getting a lot of those big guys on here to talk to you guys and let the community know a little bit more about product. Because the thing about this, and this is something that I told as we were developing this, was there's a bit of brand knowledge out there and a bit of product knowledge in this whole, I guess you want to call it, industry of baseball, softball, sporting goods in general. And a lot of times people go after what people are swinging, what's the hot bat, what's the coolest looking glove, what's this, what's that. And me running all of our social platforms, it's crazy because you get some wild questions. And I'm like, you get the people that you post. Let's just say, for example, we did a review of the Marucci, the CADX, the 2023 CADX, and that's 3 bats. And we're swinging them, and in the store, people are like, "Oh, I heard that bat sucks, and this bat's bad," and I'm like, "But this bat's better," and blah blah blah. And I'm almost sometimes like flabbergasted, because I'm like, well, the bat doesn't suck. You just don't. Maybe that bat's not for you. Maybe that bat's not yours. And the idea was, we started talking to a couple of different vendors, and we're like, hey, would you be open to talking about this and really like kind of shining some light on what your product is, and why people should get it? And they were like, oh, of course. And I thought that would be a great transition of content to give to people, buying products, to give to players that may not know, that are looking at certain bats, and not sure which kind of trigger to pull, which one they need to go with. And I think the more that we can get more information to not only to customers, but to the community of the game, it not only benefits everyone around it, but it makes the game more fun and enjoyable, and people are actually playing to their enjoyment. There's nothing worse than, I can attest to it. I'm sure everybody can, you go out and you buy the coolest and the bat that everyone's talking about, and you just don't perform with it, and that's something that happens quite a bit. I'd say, honestly. I mean, I can remember doing that. You're just like, God dang, this bat sucks. But it doesn't suck because there's a guy on the other team that just went 450 on you with the same bat. And it's like, what is it, right? So that's been the kind of thing, and that's kind of what we're planning on having here, guys. We've got a multitude of guests lined up for this thing. It's going to be insane. We've got a lot of D1 players, we've got a lot of pro players, we've got a lot of big time coaches, we've got a lot of big names coming in from all over the country, not just in baseball but in softball as well. And we're just super, super, super excited to get this thing rolling. Um, and yeah, guys, so that's kind of like the background of it all. This is pretty much going to be, like I said, a multitude of things. If you've tuned into our Instagram, if you've tuned into our Facebook, Twitter, we're kind of working on it. It's coming, but we're still working on all that. But the idea is that we wanted this to be kind of an all-encompassing thing with the Bottom of the Ninth podcast. We would loop that into the bat test. We would loop that into the bat battles, and all those things are coming. And we're super pumped. Like I said, super pumped to do this. And it's just kind of idea to bring more and more content to the baseball community and really put a footprint in there. And that's basically what we're doing here, man. And that's, is whether it's training tips, whether it's brand information, whether that's new product releases that we want to talk to you guys about, whether that's getting a coach to tell you kind of his journey and what he looks for in players. If you're a player looking, one of the most valuable things, and this is something, me hanging out at a store and coaching youth kids, I think one of the biggest things that I've heard from people is questions on the recruiting process and making this game go as far as you can let it go. And I think that, getting coaches in here and them talking about how they recruit, why they recruit, where they recruit, anything like that's a big topic. Talking to, not even talking about my own recruiting process, but bringing in guys that played at the Division I level, that played pro ball, and kind of going through their recruiting process and how they went through it. And it's the cool thing is that it varies from person to person. There's no one cut thing. It's like, oh, I did this, 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 and that's, uniform around the board. It's not. So I think, letting people know that there's a lot of different routes you can take to let this game go further, I think is super interesting. And I think that that would be something that a lot of people would really benefit from. And then also just hearing about the game, man, like hearing about some of the cool things that players have been through and things that they've done and places they've seen, places they've played, people they've played against that may be the biggest names in the game. I mean, those are just pieces of what we're planning to put together here. So, like I said, thank you guys for tuning in. Super happy to have you guys here. If you're listening, if you're watching, thank you. We really appreciate it. But yeah, so that kind of gives us, what we are here and who we are and what this is going to be. And I hope that was, pretty satisfactory. I don't want to give too much away because we really want to just blow you guys away with a lot of the content we're bringing. So, um, don't want to give too much away, but I did want to kind of go into a subtopic of this intro so that it's not just me tooting my own horn and talking about this thing all day. So yeah, so we all know right now, like I said, it's November 12th, 2022. I'm actually wearing a hoodie in Texas because it's actually freezing cold outside, which is random. Yesterday or 2 days ago, I was running and was sweating. It was like 90 degrees and walk out the office yesterday and it's like 45 with wind chill. It's cold. Well, it's cold in Texas. For you people up north or wherever you're at, this may be child's play, but for me, it's cold. Um, which means when November hits, that means one thing: it's sadness because there's no more baseball. But it's off season. You know, it's off season. Um, I'm sure everybody had a great time watching. The Phillies and Astros kind of battle that out. Um, whether I'm happy with that result, different story, but I digress. It is the off season now. One second. One thing I will say is we will do a lot of talking about bettering your game from a mental standpoint, from a physical standpoint, and me finishing college and with an exercise and sports science degree. I think training and what you do off the field is just as important as the work you're putting in the cages and on the field. So that's something that I'm a big advocate for. So we're going to talk a lot about those things. But one thing that, and I think this is something that I had a parent reach out to me the other day, um, is the off season, right? We have kids these days, and this is kind of a little off topic, but still on the topic of off season and what to do. I was one of those kids when I played. I didn't really get an off season. It was crazy. I'm playing from January to December and run it back again in January. And I think that's kind of an old school way of thinking. I truly do. And especially with youth ball, kids are growing. I've seen, way too many kids these days, you know, not getting adequate rest in what they need. Um, and I think that's super sad. they're kids, and this is something that, there's always the guys who are gonna be like, oh, you don't grind, we gotta grind all the time, how do you expect to make it? I'm like, yeah, dude, but like balance is key, and I think, keeping it fun for the kids is a big deal. I think that that's huge. And me coaching middle school kids from grade 6 to 8, they're, I look back at how I played the game and I'm like, maybe I overdid it a couple of times, but it's like, they're kids and these are kids, and this is tailored towards, I guess, maybe as you get older, it changes. I'm going to actually have 2 different ways in the off season for different age groups. So we're going to go through that, but they're kids. They need to be able to relax and have fun and still enjoy the game. It's not quite a job yet. I think when you get to the high school level and you're looking at your career and you're looking at the potential of you playing at a higher level, at possibly in the college realm, or even, if you want to shoot for the stars, pro ball, I think once you get to high school, the game changes. It speeds up. It's much more, speeds up. It's fast paced, but it's no longer like, let's go out and have fun. Um, though, let me rephrase, it is go out and have fun, because there's not a minute that I didn't enjoy on that field, except for maybe when you suck, but that's different. But it's no longer like, oh, we're just gonna go out and have a good time. No, like, you're here to do a job. Let's get a job done, right? Okay. So, point being, off season, if you're, I want to say 14U and less, um, I find it super, super important that you give your kids, if you're a parent while listening, or if you're a player listening, um, take at least a month off from the game, at least a month off, just to rest, just to give yourself kind of a decompression from the game, especially with kids that start in January and run all the way through December. Because I've seen it. You may take a weekend off. Okay, a weekend off, 2 weekends off. No, they need some time. I've seen, and this is something that I've noticed a lot of times, and I'm a victim of it. And I guess victim's not the word to say, but injuries in the game are growing at an immense rate. And that's due to lack of rest and recuperation. It's a lack of proper training. It's a lack of a lot of things. I'm not going to pinpoint it on one, because um, that would be wrong of me, because I can't sit here and do that. I'm not a scientist, but I'm seeing it with kids that don't want to play anymore, and then they go through the motions, or they overwork their bodies because they're just going all day, every day, 2 different practices, 2 different teams. They're going to school, they're playing on the weekends, staying up late on Sunday night, driving home late Sunday nights to get their butt up and go to school the next day. That's taxing on a kid. It's taxing on a student athlete, in college. Imagine what that's like on a 12-year-old kid. So my biggest thing, and this goes both sides, rest recovery is huge. Give the kids a rest. Like I said, this is for 14-year-olds. We're going to get to the older off season for sure, but rest. That's the biggest thing I can tell you guys, and that's one of the bigger things I think that people need to really pay attention to. Rest and recovery is huge, especially if you want to play this game for the long run. Next, train hard. Yeah, so training for, I'm going to kind of go both ways. So yeah, training training for kids is a little different. I think when you say train, weight should not be introduced till they're at least 13, 14 years old. And even at that, it should be very minimal at the most. Training, I think it's good for speed and agility work. I think it's good for hand-eye coordination work in the cage, maybe a little bit of throwing drills with a small, maybe minimal weighted ball. I'm not the hugest fan of weighted balls, but I think they can be beneficial in controlled environments the right way, with the right program, with the right structure. So train hard, train with intent, train with purpose. I think that's a big thing. So when you have kids coming in there and they're in their off season, let's say that you walk into December and it's their off season and they're getting lessons. Make sure they're training with intent. Make sure you're training the right way. I think that's huge. Second thing, throwing programs. Third thing, throwing programs. Doesn't pertain. I wrote one list, but I'm kind of going to split it up because there's off seasons for different kinds of players and different calibers of players. So right now we're going to start with the youth. We're going to get to the kind of college and the more elite level player off season route, but for sure. So throwing programs, I think there's a lot of throwing programs out there for youth kids just to strengthen their arm, whether that's 10 to 15, 20 throws a day at different distances. That's fine. I don't think that that's a problem. But then again, you have to also gauge where the kid's at, where his arm strength's at. Has he had prior injuries? There's a lot of different things like that, but throwing programs are huge. Throwing programs. And then the last thing, work on your weaknesses. This goes both ways. If you have a kid who's struggling to hit a breaking ball, if he's one of those kids that's coming up in the league and they're just getting into coach's pitch and they're just starting to see breaking balls, work on that. It's not rocket science. Go out and work on that. Work on, going the other way. Work on pulling the ball. Work on fielding ground balls. These are all things that kids at all age groups can do. It's no specific rule, it's no specific, timetable for it. Work on it. That's all it is. Now, like I said, for kids, for off season for kids, it's more or less just letting them be kids. If they want to keep playing and train hard, let them. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. You just have to be mindful of what they're doing and how they're doing it and what could possibly happen if you overdo it. That's all I'm saying. And I think that it's harder and harder these days for kids before they get into high school to really understand what an off season is, truly. Because they're playing year round. And I think that there's a time and place, and I think that there's a time and place for them to still be kids, and I think there's a time and place for you to actually let them get that proper rest that they require. Now, going into the more intricate level of off season. So, for anyone playing high school, you're going into college, off season is vital. It's huge. Not as big for the younger group, but for guys that are looking to play and play at an elite level, the off season is a huge, huge, huge deal. When I say that, I mean that it's the opportunity for you to better yourself for the coming season. That's all that should be for. Now, this is where I get a little rest. Rest, when I said for kids, is for kids. Rest for you guys, for the older group, for the kids that are looking to get better, maybe make that varsity team, maybe get that offer in college, wherever it may be, whether you're trying to get that scout's attention at your next showcase. I'm a huge believer, like I said earlier, in rest and recovery. You know your body. You know what you're pushing it in. And I'm not saying that voice inside your head that makes you want to quit on a sprint. No, I mean, knowing the difference between pain and soreness is a huge thing. All I can say on this topic before we move on to the next one, rest when you know you need rest, and don't overdo it. Because I've seen kids overdo it, dudes that have immense talent that overdo it and are just never the same. So don't overdo it. Rest when it's needed. Work when it's time to work. But know the difference and know when you should or shouldn't be pushing yourself to a certain level. That means ego lifting. Number one, never ego lift. Lift on what's for you and what's going to help you. Don't try to match the guy next to you. Don't try to match the guy down the road over there at Gold's who's deadlifting 650. No, you're a ball player, an athlete. Lift like one, train like one. All I'm going to say on that. Now, into this, because that transitions into this next topic of train hard. Now, if you're in high school, if you're a college kid who's in an off season, I'd be remiss if I didn't think you guys had a weight training program. Now, I could be wrong because my school didn't. Small Catholic school, but we really didn't have a mandatory weight program. If you're playing college ball, I know you have a weight program. And if you don't, I'm going to have to make a call. But you better be on a weight program. But yeah, guys, train hard and train with intent. That means, when I say train with intent, and I just say it means train with purpose. And it's the sense of when you're training, you can have the bro workouts, you can have the bro lifts, and let's do this and let's do curls and blah blah blah. But that doesn't benefit you. You want to work in I don't care. I'm the kind of guy now. My playing days are over, so I do a lot of bro lifts. I can. I'm not trying to go out there and drop mamos and throw 95 anymore. I'm just trying to look good. So it's different. There's different levels of training for different levels of life. You're a student athlete. Like I said earlier, train like one. Work on things, overhead press, med ball throws, med ball work, lots of dumbbell work, but not, to where it can be detrimental to your muscles and your tendons and stuff like that. Just be mindful. That's all you have to do. Be mindful and train on what's going to translate to the field. There's actually a blog article that I wrote about strength training in athletes. If you haven't checked that out, please go to Baseball Express and check that out. If you're looking for more information on that aspect, that's the place to look. I'm not going to go over all that here, but just so you're aware, there's an article on it. Go check it out. But yeah, so train with intent, train with purpose. Don't go in there and excuse me here, half-ass the workout just because you have to do it. If you want to perform and you want to play at your highest level, you look at any professional player, you look at any successful collegiate athlete, collegiate player, whether that's football, basketball, golf, tennis, whatever it is, you train with intent if you want to play at the highest level. There's no excuse, there's no around it, there's no way to get around that. Train with intent, train hard, make it purposeful. That's all I can say on that. Now, throwing programs. Okay. So if you're a pitcher or if you're just a player trying to get better, you're trying to, get more velo, arm strength, whatever, what have you. Throwing programs are essential. Excuse me there. When I say essential, I mean that, starting a throwing program is huge, but there are some bad ones out there. Let me tell you. I remember, I think it was my sophomore year of junior college. I was actually playing with a guy over the summer. It was going into my sophomore year, and I remember we're playing. I was playing out in Houston, Texas, over at HBU, Houston Baptist University, and I remember he came out on Saturday. It was more or less I think we had like 2 games during the week and then 2 on Saturday, Sunday. And I remember he was pitching that Sunday. I was catching at the time. I was a catcher, and he was pitching that Sunday. And I remember watching this dude, and he was just, he was like straining. Throwing foul pole to foul pole, and I was like, "Yo, what are you doing? You're playing. We pitch tomorrow. Like you're pitching. You're on the mound. You're going, 6+." And he goes, I shit you not. He goes, "Well, my throwing program has me throwing 8 times a week. 8 times a week? What are you talking about?" And he showed me the paper, and I thought, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. This is the worst thing I've ever seen. And I had seen some pretty bad throwing programs. But point is, when you're going into a throwing program, really look at it and really use your your brain is the only way I can think about it. If you're in an off season, and let's just say you're a pitcher. Let's say you're a pitcher at a D1 school and you just put in 80 plus innings from, March to May, June-ish, you threw 80 plus innings. That's a pretty big season. That's a big season. Would I recommend for you, this person, this, John Doe, to go out and play summer ball? Probably not. Probably not. That's when the throwing programs begins. You take a good chunk of time off, rest, you train, and if you want to toss, but toss with, again, intent and purpose. Make sure it's like, I'm just getting loose. I just want to feel everything. I want to feel good. If you're an outfielder and you played in, 40, 50 games, take the rest, train, continue to train. Don't let that go to waste. And if you want to throw, but for feel, give yourself that time to recuperate, and then we go into it, right? So now when we go into winter months, work on your weaknesses. Now's the time, especially if you're in the north, you're going to start getting snowed in. If you're down south, you may be able to still get out on the field. Work on your weaknesses. I can't stress this enough. You have a lot of people, and this is kind of a hot topic, right? This is kind of a hot take, whatever you want to say. They have, they're like, focus on your strengths. Focus on your strengths. True. Focus on your strengths. I'm not taking that away from you. Keep doing that. But at the same time, if all you're focusing on your strengths, so let's say you can hit a fastball in any part of the plate, you can hit it inside, outside, up and out, in down and in, wherever it is, you can smash it. Congratulations. What happens when you see a guy that can throw those fastballs, and yeah, you may not get them? What happens if you can throw you 2 other pitches, 2 other plus pitches? What are you going to do? Wait for that fastball? Guess what, bub? If he can hit all the spots with those breaking pitches, you may not see one. So, point being, work on your weaknesses. If you're a hitter, work on, if you're a pull guy, work on maybe throwing the hands on the outside corner, work on throwing balls the other way. If you can't hit an inside pitch, get the hands going and work on that. And that should be a key focal point on any of your training sessions for the off season. So that way, when you come into the season, or maybe you were fighting for a spot, maybe you were, second string, maybe you were battling it out with this guy. If you're continually working and working and working, that benefits you. That translates, right? That goes the right way for you. So that's all I can say for hitting. For pitching, if you're a pitcher, work on your weaknesses. And this is something that I think I wrote an article. I've been writing articles like crazy for us, but I think another one I wrote, especially for bullpens, for pitchers, when you go into a bullpen and I say work on your weaknesses, bullpens are not just, let's just throw everything, blah, blah, blah. I see a lot of guys do that. No, you go into the bullpen and you work. You're there to work. You're there to feel pitches. You're there to hit spots. You're there to put yourself in situations that you may find yourself in a game. That's the point of it. So if you go into, let's say you had a year, right, and you started off the year, I could snap it off. I could do this, and I was getting guys out, and then all of a sudden, half the season hit halfway, and then I just couldn't find my changeup anymore. I don't know what happened. Couldn't throw it. If I threw it, it was meat, and it went 450. Seen it happen. Now, at that point, okay, season's over. That's done. What can we do to prepare and get better for the next? Let's start throwing that changeup. Let's start hitting with secondary pitches. If you were a 1-2 punch kind of guy, work on those pitches and work on those situations where you may need to put those balls in certain hitter situations, whatever, what have you. There's always something to work on, is my point. So yeah, guys, the off season is a great time. Like I said, rest, train hard, throw, hit, all those programs, and then work on your weaknesses. Those are the biggest focal points I can give you for the off season. And there's no better time to do it in the off season. And that's one of the things, and I tell a lot of people, you can make minuscule changes in season. I think for kids it's younger because you have extra time. But for kids, guys playing high school, guys playing college, guys that don't have that time to really start to really micromanage their game, when the season's on and we're playing, there's no time to sit there and pretty much reinvent your swing. Can't happen. You can't reinvent your pitching style. Can't happen. Time to do it, the off season. The off season, the off season, the off season. So it's a great time, guys. Train, get better, take care of yourself, work hard, and really start to put in the work for that next season. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I had for today, man. I just wanted to really get into it. About who we are, what we're going to be doing. There's going to be a lot of more brand battles. If you haven't checked out our Instagram, Twitter, check it out. We have some really cool content on there of me dropping yams because it's what I love to do. Wasn't even a hitter, I was a pitcher. So that's how you know it's even more true because I just take daddy hacks. It's awesome. Now, yeah, so I just wanted to really kind of talk about that kind of stuff, guys. Let you know who we are, who's bringing you this podcast, who I am, and what makes me excited to do this and talk to you all about all these things. And then, yeah, I just wanted to talk about the off season. There's been a lot of talk about amongst my players of what to do right now. And I was super happy to hear that a lot of kids these days are taking some time, which is awesome. I think that's beautiful. It's a good thing for the game. It's a good thing for them. But yeah, off season, rest, train hard, throwing programs, work on your weaknesses. But that's all I got for today, guys. Thank you all for tuning in. If you're watching, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. We all really appreciate it here at the Bottom of the Ninth podcast. Yeah, guys, we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for listening and thanks for watching.